Alright, welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video we're going to discuss value add in commercial real estate. In the last video we discussed value add in residential. In this video we're going to talk about value add in commercial. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So what does value add in commercial real estate mean? Well, value add in commercial real estate in a very similar way to residential value add essentially means when you do something to the deal, to the property, in order to increase the cash flow and increase the value. The difference between the residential and the commercial side is that the commercial side, it's tied, the valuation of the property is tied to the cash flow, to the income that is generated. So any improvements that you make, any additions, any value that you add to the property typically will affect the income, in turn will affect the valuation. So that's basically one of the big differences between the commercial side and the residential side. On the commercial side, the value of the property is tied into the income that it generates. On the residential side, it's not really tied into the income or the cash flow. So what does it look like? What are the different ways that you can value add in a commercial real estate deal? Well, let's go ahead and look at them now. So let's look at the different ways you can value add in a commercial real estate deal. Well, first one is the obvious and the one that is similar to the residential side, and it is to do renovations and improvements. For example, if you're buying an apartment complex and it is an outdated building with an old roof and has a lot of deferred maintenance, you can go ahead and do some renovations and some improvements to go ahead and increase the value. The way you would do that is by updating the property itself, putting on some new paint, maybe updating the appliances. You can go ahead and generate more rent for the same property, right? Since it's updated and it's newer, you can charge higher rent, which will in turn increase your cash flow, which will in turn increase the value of the property. So that's the first way. The second way is by repurposing it. Right? Whether you have a mixed-use building or an apartment complex, you can go ahead and repurpose that property by going through the zoning, making sure that you're following the zoning regulations and following the right permitting procedures in your local area. You can go ahead and repurpose the property. Now you can use the property for another commercial use. Whether it's turning an apartment complex into a hotel or a hotel into an apartment complex, for example. So in order for you to increase the cash flow of the property, the revenue of the property, and in turn increase the value of the property itself. So that's the second way. The other way is lease optimization. In this case, it's if you have, for example, a commercial retail space, and it's a commercial shopping center, and you have a tenant that is on a single net lease. That lease basically means single net, basically means the landlord is responsible for everything, not only just the taxes on the property itself, but also maintenance. Is responsible for upkeep, anything that breaks down within the property itself. The property owner the landlord is responsible. So by turning that single net lease into a triple net meaning it's a complete net lease agreement where the tenant is in this case responsible for everything except for the taxes on the property and maybe the roof, for example. By doing that, you're transitioning most of the responsibilities for maintenance off that property to the tenant. This will reduce your expenses and also make it much more passive as an owner. So again, by doing a lease optimization or restructuring the lease agreement, you can go ahead and increase the value of the property because now you're removing a big chunk of your expenses out and increasing your cash flow, which will in turn increase the value of the property, right? And we can talk more about triple net properties. I can do a whole separate video about those and how they work and the benefits of the triple net on a commercial retail space. And then on the apartment complex side, if you have an apartment complex, a multifamily property, and the previous owner was paying for electricity or gas or utilities as part of that's what's included in their rent, you can come in and change that structure, the lease agreements. Once the lease expires, of course, you can't do it midstream. You can go ahead and put that back to the tenants, right? The tenants will be responsible for paying the utilities going forward. That reduces your expense, in turn increases your cash flow, and in turn increases the value of the property. So that's one way. Another way is the operational improvements, right? If you have a management company that is charging you more or is not efficient, then you need to figure out ways on how to make it efficient so that you can reduce your operational cost. And in turn, by reducing your operational costs, you increase your cash flow, which means you're profiting more. And by increasing the cash flow, you're increasing the valuation. So operational improvements is another way. And the best way to do that is to reduce your expenses on that property that you're paying every month. Whether that's eliminating a property management company or the property management that you're using, or figuring out ways to reduce costs on the maintenance that you're spending every month. So that's another way. And then another way to go ahead and improve this or add value is to do some expansion and development. What does that mean? Let's say you have an apartment complex or a property, a multifamily property that has a piece of land that is part of that property. You can build additional units on that land. Now, by building additional units on that land, you're generating additional source of income, additional rent, which in turn increase your cash flow, and in turn will go ahead and increase the value of that property. So that's another way to make sure that you can go ahead and add value to your deal. And then finally, capital improvements. So what does that mean? Well, you can install an energy efficient appliances, or you can install a new, more modern AC system, right? That will reduce your cost in the common area, when you're paying for electricity every month. So by doing some capital improvements, whether it's, adding a new energy efficient appliances or energy efficient HVAC system, you can go ahead and reduce your monthly expenses. Again, it goes back to, the main takeaway from here is, guys, anything that you can do to reduce the expenses and or increase the rent or the revenue that you're generating, that will in turn increase the value of the property because you're increasing the cash flow. The profit goes up, the value of the property goes up with it. So that's typically how it works, and these are the simple ways to add value in a commercial deal. I can make separate videos talking about each and every one of them and giving a specific example how that works. Put a comment below if you're interested in watching that video. Guys, that's the end of this video. Again, if you want to if you want me to do a video on any of the topics that I covered or the different ways that you could value add, I can make a separate video going in detail about each individual ways and give you examples on another video. Besides that, thank you again for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, take care, guys.